Hello everyone. In this video we are going to learn how to integrate Access Manager with Advanced Authentication Framework. In this tutorial I have used Access Manager 4.4.4 with Advanced Authentication Framework 6.1. So you can see on the screen I have freshly installed Advanced Authentication Framework and it is asking me to go to the management workstation. This is AAF management workstation and you can see there are different shortcuts. This shortcut is called the administration, which you can use to log into AAF portal, and the second is called the enrollment URL. So when I clicked on the administration link, it took me to this page. This means that there is nothing configured on this Advanced Authentication Framework server. So what we are going to do, we are going to do a very simple configuration to create a new cluster or a standalone server. Click on new cluster. Next, it will detect the DNS hostname. Click on the next and set a password for local admin user. So what happens when you configure Advanced Authentication Framework and create a cluster? It creates a repository, a by default repository called the local, and create a user admin on that. So it is asking me to set password for that user. Next, you can do next here, and it will take some time to create the cluster and configure. Okay, so the AF server initial configuration is done, and you can see that it is asking me to enter with the admin user. So the login is local admin novel. So here you can see there are multiple configuration. What we are going to do, we will start with changing the certificate for this Advanced Authentication Framework server. To change the certificate, let's see what certificate it is showing now. Click here. You can see this is a certificate which is a self-signed certificate, I believe. So we are going to use a certificate which I have created on using my admin console, that is msync 20 underscore AAF, I will use this certificate. So for that purpose, I have to go to server options and browse this certificate. Make sure you have downloaded that certificate using PFX format, which will contain the private and public IP both. It will ask me password for certificate, and then it is installed. Now I'm gonna click here again, and you can see the new certificate is used now. So it is using the new certificate. The next step is to create a repository. Go to repository here, and you can see there is already repository called local created with one user in it, and this user is the admin user. Click on the add LDAP repo. I'm gonna use eDirectory, and I'm going to configure the same user store which I'm going to use in Access Manager for authentication in this tutorial. Name, I'm giving a name confstore. This name plays an important role. I will explain later. So basically this name is similar to the name of my user store on Access Manager, but you can give any name here. Bastion, and then I have to provide the admin user, DN of admin user, password, I will use SSL, and save it. So it has created a repository here. And I will enable the full synchronization. It has started the synchronization, and you can see synchronization users have been processed. So 7 users have been processed here because in my user store only 7 users are present. I will save this configuration. Okay, so now I have a configuration stored configured. The next step, what we have to do is to go to events, and here you can see once you install and do an initial configuration for AAF, there is a default NAM event is created, and this NAM event will be used with the integration with Access Manager. Open and see, there's nothing much here. Okay, so now there are basically two kind of integration with Advanced Authentication Framework. The one integration is called plugin based integration, and the another integration is called OAuth based integration. This NAM event will be used in case of plugin based integration. So to do the plugin based integration, what we have to do, go to admin console, devices, identity server, and go to the shared setting. In the shared setting, you can see a tab called Advanced Authentication. Click on this tab, and here you can see it is asking for server configuration. This is the server configuration where you have to give the DNS name of your advanced authentication server, and the port will be 443, which is the port of the administrator, advanced authentication administrator. So once you go and configure this and click apply, as soon as you put that, you can see that this URLs has been populated. When you click apply, says it's waiting for admin console, and this is done. So once you see this, what you see here, it is coming from my previous configuration. I have already once configured, but just for the time being, ignore this OAuth configuration. Right now we are interested in only plugin, so we have to look on the server configuration and the integration URLs. So once you do this, you can see, if you go to the IDP server, there will be a folder called etc app plugin, and there you can see a file created config.xml. So this config.xml is basically the configuration what we have done right now. It uses an ID and a secret. This ID and secret will be used by IDP server to communicate with the AAF server. Okay. So here you can see we have done the integration, and there is a config.xml is created. Now we are going to see in administration console what happened of advanced authentication server, what happens. So when you go to the endpoint, you can see there is an endpoint created here. This endpoint was not present before this step. So you can see there is an endpoint which name is msync5.lab.novel.com. This is actually the DNS name of my IDP server. So once this endpoint is created, it means the plugin based integration has been done. Now the next step is to test the plugin based integration. So to test this, what use case we are going to take, we will test a method which advanced authentication provide is the SMS OTP. So in this use case, SMS OTP method will be used as a second factor authentication. So what will happen that when user access any protected resource or any contract, which when it access any protected resource, the first authentication method will be the NAM authentication, where user will authenticate on the identity server of NAM. Once the authentication is successful, user will be prompted to authenticate with the advanced authentication server as a second factor authentication. In this use case, we are going to use the SMS OTP. So what we have to do now, to enable any method, you have to go to section called methods. Go to methods, and here you can see there is a SMS OTP method. We are going to use this method. You can basically, there is a configuration here. You can configure based on what kind of OTP you need, but for this purpose we are going to just leave it as it is. Now we will go to change and create a change for this particular SMS OTP method. select this SMS OTP and we will apply it for the all users in this use case. Save this. So you can see there is SMS OTP chain is created and it is applicable to all the users. Now we'll go to events, and as I said that there is a by default event NAM is created when you install and configure AAF server, but right now it is not using any chain. So what we are going to do, we'll edit this. We will provide a chain called LDAP password, which will use the user's LDAP password for authentication, and another one will be the SMS OTP. So we are configuring NAM to integrate with AAF using these two chains, and we need not to do anything here, just save it. Just make sure you are passing LDAP password only and SMS OTP to the from available to the used. Save this configuration. Once this is saved, we can test the integration. To test the integration, what we need to do, we have to go to admin console, go to local and go to classes, and we are going to create a class which is called NAM AAF SMS, and here you can see there is multiple advanced authentication classes are there. Out of all these classes, one class, which is the generic class, that is used by the OAuth approach, OAuth integration, but the other like dynamic, email, emergency, radius, all other than this generic class is used by the plugin approach. So as our use case is the SMS, we are going to select the SMS class and click on next and finish. Now we will go to method and create a method for this class. Put the same name, class. I'll select this class which I've just created, and I will use this particular user store. Now when I'm selecting this particular user store and create a finish and press the finish, and when I do actually authentication, basically Advanced Authentication Framework is going to look at the repository whose name is confess store. So make sure what you are selecting here and the repository name should be same. But if it is not same, if you are not making it same due to some reason, you have an option of providing the confess store. So suppose I have selected confess store user store as a Scott, but I want user to be searching confess store at Advanced Authentication Framework. I can select the property called repository name and give this particular attribute. In this case, Advanced Authentication Framework is going to check the user in this particular confess store. But as the name is same here and on the app, I am going to keep it as it is. After that, what I'm going to do, I will create another method which will be the method used on Access Manager for the first authentication. So I will give name like NAMAF secure name password for, and for this I am going to select secure name password from class, use the user confess store. Okay, now I'm going to create one contract which name will be NAMAF SMS and I will select the first method as the secure name password form and the second as the F SMS method. So now I'm gonna click on the next. So when in this case now user will first authenticate on this method and then IDP will do authentication with Advanced Authentication Framework using the SMS method. Click on the next, set a ID, just select some image. There will be some default image for the advanced authentication classes, so I'm going to use AASMS and then click on finish. Okay, update. So here we have configured the SMS class and contract and everything, but we actually need to also configure a policy. A policy is something which F uses to execute their methods. So policy means if you click on this tab, you can see there are multiple policies. So in that there is a policy called SMS sender. This policy basically F will use to send a SMS. If you will not configure this policy, a particular contract will fail. So there are different ways to configure this particular SMS sender policy. What I'm going to do, I will use a Twilio account and configure it using that account. So for the Twilio account, I will click on this Twilio and it is asking for account state authentication token and sender phone. So when you create a Twilio account, you can basically get this information from there. I will configure this and then also it has an option of testing it on the flow. So let's configure these options. I'm configuring account state and then token, sender phone. These are the three configurations which you need to take from Twilio account. Okay. And now I will, to test it, I will give my mobile number. This matches. Okay. And send the test message. And message is sent. And I just receive a SMS OTP. Okay. So here this thing is done and configuration is done. I have just in between I stopped saving my setup because I didn't want the authentication token to be seen. Okay, so this configuration is done. I will click on save now. So now Advanced Authentication Framework has the policy to send a SMS. So now we can go ahead and excuse me, test our contract created on the Access Manager. So I forgot to mention one thing which I will cover again here. When you create any method which includes a authentication framework class, and if you get any issue, what you can do to check the what's going on with the system, you can set a property called select other, keep the property name as debug, and select the property value as true, configure the as true. This will basically what it does, it dumps all the debug message related to IDP and Advanced Authentication Framework communication in the IDP's Catalina.out. So it's a good debugging option if you bumps up into any problem. Okay, so I will update now, and just to see the issue, if we face any, I will tail to a file. This is the nam idp catalina.out file, and also you need to make sure the IDP auditing and logging, here the application need to be configured in debug mode. Okay, so once you do this, you can test the contract. So for testing that, I'm opening a new browser window and I will access the IDP portal. Okay, before I do that, what I'm gonna do, I am gonna test basically two users. The first user is AAF test user 3, which is having a mobile number configured here. Now for the SMS OTP to work, the user should have a mobile number. So this mobile number is configured for the user. Once this test is done, I'm going to test with another user who doesn't have any mobile number in his LDAP user store. So we will see what happens in both the cases. So the first case is the user which has a mobile number. I'll go to the IDP portal. Now this contract you can also create as a protected resource for any with the access gateway, with any protected resource with access gateway. So this is my contract nam af sms. Click on this. So you can see this is the typical secure name password form page where it is asking me to provide, and it is the first authentication which we are providing on the NAV. Test user 3 is my password. Did I enter wrong password? Yes. Okay, so now you can see that it is authenticated at the NAM, and then IDP has done a communication with Advanced Authentication Framework server, and now the server is asking for the SMS password. But you can see a difference that you are not providing the password at the Advanced Authentication Framework server, but you are providing the password at NAM. This is a basic difference between the plugin approach and the OAuth approach. In OAuth approach, you provide this kind of password on the app server, but here you are providing password on the IDP server. So I got my SMS OTP on my mobile, and I'm gonna put this password and click on sign in. So when you do the very first authentication, you will get this kind of message. Says that it is your first authentication. Please provide your LDAP password for personalization in the system. So provide your password and login. And this is done only once. Once you do that and after that you authenticate, it will not ask you for that. So you can see the authentication has been done. So I'm going to test it again so that to verify that it is not asking me for this LDAP password again after providing the SMS OTP. So I'm closing this browser and access the same contract again. Authenticate as name. Authentication again failed because I again put the wrong password. Oh no, this time the user is wrong. Okay, so SMS OTP it has asked. So I'm going to provide my SMS OTP. And sign in. Excuse me. Now you can see it has not asked me for the LDAP password again because the account is customized now. So this is how the plugin approach works. If you are interested in checking the logs, you can go and trace this. We are basically looking for the place when we have entered the password, the authentication at NAM. So you can see these kind of logs. So when I have passed my username and password, it went and it checked the configuration config.xml, and then it has, so you can see all the AAF log is with the tag AAF plugin authentication class.debug message, and it is under debug NIDS application. So make sure that IDP is configured for application in the debug mode, and the debug property should be true in the AAF class. Okay, so now after this you can see it is requesting the OTP for the first time, and it has done a communication. You can see it is making a request and it says the status is okay and it processes data. So there are a lot of things are going on here. So if you see any issue, you can see there is an exception coming. So now we are going to see that part. As I told in the beginning, we have tested one user which has an account whose user store contains the mobile number. Now in the new case, we are going to test a user who doesn't have a mobile number configured on his account. So this is the AAF test user 2. It has a telephone number, but AAF looks for the attribute called mobile. So we are going to do the same thing. Open a browser. And access my contract. Provide the user which does not have a mobile attribute. So the first authentication on NAM successful, but you can see it says conf store AAF test user 2 has no authenticator for the SMS OTP. If you go and see in the log, you will basically see some exception message. So So you can see there is an attempt to log in with the AAF test user 2, and IDP has received this particular error which says that, oh, there is no authenticator for the SMS OTP. This is a very generic message which is actually not giving the actual reason here. The authenticator is configured, but the user does not have a mobile number. So what, and you can see the exception is there. So it's a good way to understand what's going on there by looking on the logs. So what we can do to overcome this problem is either configure a mobile for this user and then go to your administration console of Advanced Authentication Framework and synchronize the configuration store. This is one way. The another way is to do the same thing using enrollment URL. So for doing with the enrollment URL, what you need to do, you have to log in on the enrollment URL. So this second on the main dashboard, this second is the enrollment URL. When you click on this, you can see it has opened that, and here you have to log in as that particular user. This is completely a personalized thing, so the user is only able is only responsible to or authorized to do the enrollment. So when you log in here, you have to give the user store name and the username. Click on the next and provide your LDAP password, and you can see the enrolled authenticator. So here this is not configured because there is no mobile number. Now what happens if we test for the same thing for the user which has already mobile number? So I'm going to see this user, you can see, and it says it is auto created. So if there is a mobile number already with the user, the enrollment is not required. But if there is no mobile number, the user has to do the enrollment. So let's enroll the AAF test user 2. Click on this and add the mobile number, save it, and you can see now it is enrolled. Now this user is enrolled. When this user is enrolled, now we can again authenticate. Excuse me. Access this current contract. Log in as the user, fuser2 on nav, and then it is asking for password. And as I configured my mobile number, I got the OTP. Sign in, and it is successful. So this was the demo for plugin approach. Plugin approach. Now, as I said, if you go to admin console, access admin console dashboard, NAM admin console, you can see under the classes there are multiple classes. There are multiple classes. Only the first class, which is Advanced Authentication Generic class, uses the OAuth approach. Other classes uses the plugin approach, where IDP communicates with the app server. There is another interesting class which is called the dynamic class, which is actually dynamically generated. So this class basically look for all the attribute for the user like if user has configured email attribute, SMS attribute, a mobile attribute, or different thing, and it actually creates a contract or authentication method based on that. So let's see how it so works. We are gonna create a dynamic class here and give the name AAF dynamic. Next, finish. Go to methods. Use the class. Select the user store. If the user store you are if the user store on app has the different user store name, you have to pass that using repository name. But as it is same as conf store, I'm not going to pass any value. Finish. Create a contract. And in the contract, the first method will be the name secure name password form method, and the second will be this dynamic method. Click on next. Select one image, finish, and go and update the identity server. Once the update is done, you can test this. I'm going to IDP portal and we'll select the contract dynamic to authenticate user on the name first. Sign in. And now you can see there are two options. It says the LDAP password only and SMS OTP. Because if you go and see your Advanced Authentication Framework Administration Console, if you go and see the chains, sorry, if you go and see the events, the NAM event is configured for two chains, LDAP password and SMS OTP. Here, if you want to add more, for example, create a chain called email method, and then you need to configure a policy to send the email, which will be the something called mail sender. Configure this and go to this event and enable this chain email. Once you do that, at this page you will see also an email method. So this because of its dynamic nature, the name is called the dynamic method. But here we are going to test the SMS OTP. So just click on the SMS OTP, continue, and I received one OTP message. Sign in, and user is authenticated. So this was all about the plugin approach. Plugin approach is actually works between the IDP and everything goes through the IDP. Now we have already discussed the plugin approach now, so we are going for the another integration approach, which is called the OAuth approach. The OAuth approach is actually very simple to set up. For the OAuth approach, what you need to do, go to the Advanced Authentication Framework admin console and go to the endpoint and go to the events, and here you need to basically create one event for the OAuth. So go here to the events, click on add, give a name, name OAuth. Select the event type as OAuth 2, and you can see grab secret, and remember it says that. So it is very important that you copy this secret, because once you save this particular events, you will not see the secret. It's only one time. So I'm gonna grab this secret and client ID. Okay. And now you can see that the NAM chain is used here. So you have to pass these to in the use section. If you will not pass, it will not work. So now in this case, it is going to use these two configured methods. There should be a redirect URI also need to be configured. This value is actually the URL from NAM. So this is the IDP OAuth URL, and IDP OAuth callback. I believe I am not doing any mistake here. And IDP OAuth NAM callback. Yes, I'm doing /NAM callback. So it's this is a redirect UI for the OAuth method, which going to be used between the IDP and AAF. To learn more about OAuth, I would suggest to go through the NAM documents for the OAuth. Now we are done here. We have created this, and we took a copy of the secret and the ID, and also take the name. These three things are important. And save this. Now the event app NAM auth has been added. Go to the admin console of Access Manager and go to shared setting, Advanced Authentication, and configure the integrate using OAuth. It is already configured with the previous values. I am going to change this with my new values. Client ID, and client secret. Okay, so once you do this, you can see apply, configuration saved, update the identity server. So go and update the identity server. So you will see that when you are doing the plugin integration, you need not to update the IDP, but for the OAuth integration, you need to update the IDP server. That may be because of some OAuth thing need to be initialized. You can also, whenever you do any configuration in the shared setting, advanced authentication tab, basically you can verify those. If you go to your configuration store of admin console, and if you go to the access manager container NIDS, you can see there is a NIDS AA config.xml. So this basically contains all the information what you have configured. Okay, so now we have updated we have done changes at the app, we have done changes at the NAM. what we need to do, we have to go ahead and create the contract for the generic class. So for that, go to admin console, local classes, new, and let's give the name NAMF generic, and select the generic class. Maybe I'll give the name OAuth. Finish. Methods. So see what happens when you select the OAuth method here. When you select it, you can see that there is something, this advanced authentication chain appear, which says you to select, and it is giving you two options, LDAP password only or SMS OTP, which is actually similar to this FNAM auth, LDAP password, SMS OTP. So whatever you configure the chains here, you can see at this place. Now here you can either leave it like this, please select, or you can select a single one. If you select a single, then only that authentication will be there. But if you don't select anything, it will behave as a dynamic class where you will have a flexibility of choosing what you want. So let's not select anything and see what happens, and then we will also change this once and see what happens. In this case, I will select the conf store. One thing you need to also note here, it is a bit different from the plugin approach. In plugin approach, there will be the app properties, but in this, I don't see any app property. Let's finish this here and go to contracts and new. Create a contract for this. And similarly again, the first method, I will choose the NAM method, secure name password form, and second method will be the NAM app OAuth. I'll provide one ID. This contract you can directly use with any protected resource on Access Gateway, or as a default contract of NAM. And there I'm going to select some image, generic. Okay, let's go and update. Great. Now the next is to test this method. Test this method. What I'm gonna do, I will use Fiddler to capture this so that we can understand what's going on. In the plugin approach, there was no way of doing it because IDP was doing a back channel communication with the app server. But here there will be some front channel communication, you can see. So I'm going to IDP portal, and I have started Fiddler to capture everything. So we'll go and select the NAM AAF OAuth, which is the generic method. Authenticate at NAM server, NAM identity server first. And you can see there is something else is going on. And you are now on the app server, which is m620.lab.novel.com. And here you can see it says to please select from the list below. Before that, let's go to Fiddler and see what happened. So in Fiddler, you can see this is the place where I have provided my username and password. Test and novel, and then what happens that the response what IDP server gives is you can see here basically it creates a form which is auth code form, and here it assigns client ID and redirect URI, and redirect URI is the same as what you have configured at the F, and this client ID is basically the client ID of what you have configured with the app server configuration on NAM, and it sends this particular request. When this particular request goes to the this request is going to the app now. Now app process this request, and then it asks for the user to select one of the method. I'm going to select SMS. So here you can see we have not selected anything in the method, it is giving me both the option like the plugin dynamic method. I'm going to select the SMS and click on next, and it is asking me for my code. I'm going to provide the code. And click on this, and here you go. You are authenticated and you are on the IDP portal back. So if you see here where I have provided the token. So you can see basically what is going on by if you can use the fiddler. Okay, so this was the OAuth. Okay, so this was the case when you have not selected any particular chain in the method. Now I'm gonna select a chain on name app auth, and I will select the chain called LDAP password only in place of SMS. Click on OK. So before that we have not selected anything, so we got two options. In this case we will not get any option. Authenticate at NAM. Still authenticating. Did I log out? Okay, let's try again. User 3. So you can see it is not asking me for any authentication because it is using the same LDAP password, I guess. What I'm going to do, I will change it to the SMS OTP now and see what happens. OAuth. Make make it as SMS OTP. And I am gonna test this method now. Go to the IDP portal, access the generic contract. So here you can see I am now on the Advanced Authentication Framework page, and it just sent a grant request to NAM has sent a grant request here, and it is asking me for the my OTP. I'll pass the OTP. And here you go, the user is authenticated. So this was all about the NAM and OAuth, NAM and AAF integration using plugin approach and the OAuth approach. The OAuth approach is it seems to be a future of the integration. The plugin approach also works fine, but the OAuth approach uh, can can be used without any limitations. There are some limitations for the plugin approach. The one of the limitations is like there are certain contract which you can certain kind of classes which is especially made for this plugin to work can be used, but AF uh, has a large number of authentication methods. So if you wanna use the any other method which is not provided by the plugin, you can go with the OAuth approach. Like if you want to use Advanced Authentication Framework server as a SAML identity provider, you can go and use the use this approach. So yeah, so this was all about the uh, NAM and AF integration. Uh, in next videos, I will probably share some of the other AF methods like voice OTP or email or maybe SAML in the next videos. Thank you very much. Bye bye.